we're going to go through some of the biggest questions that I feel like we want answered, that the fans want answered, and potentially how they loop back into gambling as well. And I feel like our first two here kind of go hand in hand. So I'll start here with number one. Can Carson Hocevar put it all together? We've seen this year, of course, he's a young driver, second year, a couple races in 23 as well. He's been the talk of the garage, both for good reasons and for bad reasons. Still has some of those boneheaded moments, but now he's got the speed too. And they just have been, it's been very difficult for them to put a full race together. They got the P2 at Nashville when everything worked out, but Michigan, they blow a tire and we're probably going to be short on fuel. You have the whole situation with Ricky Stenhouse. You have the motor blow at Charlotte. They've got some speed. We know Spire has speed. Same thing with Michael McDowell. Has some speed. Throttle cable breaks. You're not able to even be in contention for the win there. I have yet to listen to it, but I know Hocevar was on the Dale Jr. download this week and apparently said some pretty interesting things that kind of put us in his mind a little more. So that would be a good thing to listen to continue this conversation about Hocevar. But it'll be interesting to see this year because we know that he's got the talent. We know that he's got the speed. He just needs to make sure he and his team have his head on straight, and they could be able to find victory lane, get in the playoffs, or put themselves in a good position. But that's going to be one of the more important things to watch this year is can the 77 team really put it all together?
Well, when we saw that legit speed, really start to take form, I would say late spring, early summer, like the Coke 600 around that time when it was like, oh my gosh, this is like legit. Like Carson Hocevar legit has race winning speed a lot of weeks. It's the first time I feel like I've seen that from one of these, lesser funded teams since like the 2022 Trackhouse, right? Since Ross Chastain was kind of the hot thing on the street. Similar driver, kind of mentor and trainee, a little bit of a relationship there as well. So it kind of makes sense. And I think all together, Carson Hocevar does have the speed, but whether it's what happens at Chicago when he gets a little too crazy after, kind of falling back after qualifying super well. There's some stuff that's going to happen. And I think what's interesting from a betting perspective on this as well, Elliot, is that the books after those couple runs where he was having race winning speed and looked like he was going to potentially win a race, they started treating him like that. I mean, we were getting him down to 17-1, 20-1. People were betting him outright. You're betting top tens at minus money at some point. They've pulled back a little bit because his road course prowess isn't as consistent. He's still a speed qualified top 10. Just last week, he had some speed off the truck in Mexico as well, just not kind of putting the finishes there together. So I'll be kind of interested to see how do the books treat him once we get kind of back to these traditional ovals. Are we still having to bet minus 130, plus 130 top tens, or can we maybe get him back closer to 3-1 and 4-1, something like that for a top 10? Because he's one of those tough drivers to bet, dude, where it's just like we talked about, like you either have to bet the outright of the top five or you're probably not betting it.
Yeah, that's exactly the point I was going to make. We talked about it a few weeks ago. Minus money top 10 is not going to be worth it. An 18-1 outright is not going to be worth it.
Yeah.
It's basically the top five at, a plus 285, plus 300, or something like that. Or it's a bust. But we know the kid has speed. And it's almost the same deal that we just talked about with the front row guys. Is you got to remember just how young these guys are. He didn't even have the full Xfinity deals. He just had a couple full-time truck seasons, ends up going straight from trucks to cup there. Still some things to work out. But he's definitely a guy that could be there. And there's plenty of guys in the field, too, as we segue into our next question. Will we be able to see a first-time winner find victory lane this season? Of course, Hocevar could be one of those guys, but there's a host of guys who we've talked about and waxed poetic about for top 10 numbers or for maybe taking a pinch at an outright, but we still haven't seen him get to victory lane yet.
Yeah, we kind of touched on this a little bit at the top of the show. We've seen this like new wave of drivers come in who have had a lot of speed. They've been threatening lately, but they're guys without Cup Series wins. You already brought up Hocevar, but how about Ryan Preece? This is a guy who's 14th in points after a massive penalty. They got him DQ'd at Dega, running P2 in that race. Right now, this guy has 8 top 10s. That's as many as Chase Briscoe and Ryan Blaney, more than Tyler Reddick. That's how good Ryan Preece has been. And speaking of top 10s, like, can we just talk about legacy for a minute? We've been on this beat since the beginning. JHN, already 6 top 10s so far this season. He had 7 career top 10s coming into this year. And these are at like legit tracks too. It's Pocono, it's Mexico City, it's Kansas, it's Texas. Isn't it like just super speedway top 10s for JHN? So currently 20th in points. 1 spot above him is Ty Gibbs, who I think has shown a ton of speed after, like, I left this guy for dead, Elliot. Like, if you remember one of these segments we did early in the season, I said, this guy needs to go back to Xfinity to figure this out. And he's had the most speed on road courses aside from Shane van Gisbergen so far this season. So with an average finish of 8.8 over the past 5 races, I think Ty Gibbs definitely has a lot of speed as well. I think the question is, though, can any of these guys find victory lane, set themselves up for maybe a potential playoff run if it's in the next couple weeks, or if it's after that for a great dynamic 2026 season ahead for them?
Yeah, I think if you're going to see it before the playoffs start, I think it's either going to be Ty Gibbs at one of these two road courses, Sonoma or the Glen, which he's going to have to get by SVG to do it, or it's going to be at Daytona when we go back to the super speedway for the last chance. I think other than that, it's a situation where, of course, these guys have speed. All these three guys you mentioned, Preece, Gibbs, JHN, I have coin on all of them for the Sonoma race for various things or another, but none of them are on the outright. You still have a Hendrick car that doesn't have a win. I would throw in, you still have a Gibbs car that doesn't have a win if it wasn't Ty Gibbs. The other two RFK veterans also did not have wins. The two 2311 veterans, Tyler Reddick was in the championship 4 last year. They don't have wins. I mean, we just saw Chase Elliott get a win with only a handful of races left in the regular season. You know that the big dogs, the big teams that have been there and done that, they're going to need to go all in to try and get all of their drivers and their particular veterans that they think could have a shot at deep playoff runs and championships.
Yep.
They're going to want to get them the wins first, and that's going to make it so much tougher for the underdogs. But they've shown the speed that they can all do it. Preece, Gibbs, JHN, Hocevar, maybe, and again, it's anyone's game when you get to Daytona. Any one of these other guys that could be a first-time winner, it's just going to be really difficult. I feel like if it's not going to be one of those scenarios I mentioned, maybe you get somebody, playoff Talladega when you get to the round of 8. That would be a heck of a story. You can have anybody get their way to the championship 4, and instead the guy 27th in points gets the win. But it's just the opportunities are running out. But these are, I think, all of these guys that I mentioned, they're going to be Cup Series winners very, very soon.
You say this, but we gotta remember August is always a little bit of a weird time here, and we saw Chase Briscoe win on SHR's last stand last year. They're fighting without a leg.
Notably, not a first-time winner though. He had gotten it done previously. 22. Phoenix.
Sure, but we also saw Austin Dillon and RCR.
Also not a first-time winner. Austin Dillon, Daytona 500 champion. I see the point you're making.
Eric Jones at Darlington a couple of August.
Who also had won a bunch of races.
You're right.
I like the way you're going. Go ahead, bet Eric Jones, bet Austin Dillon, bet Kyle Busch still doesn't have a win. He's another guy I didn't even mention. With the RCR guys, they were all guys who had won before. It's a big monkey off the back to get your name for the first time.
Here's my question: what odds would you have to give me right now that one of these first-time winners, Hocevar, Gibbs, Preece, or JHN, one of those guys wins by the end of the season? What number would you give me? Just give me 2-1.
End of the season, I might not even take it at a 7-1. Honestly, I might need a 10-1 to take first-time winner in the remainder of at least the regular season. Maybe an 8-1 for the whole year. I just think it's going to be tough because there's such a variety of winners. You get to the playoffs and you suddenly see.
I think Preece is going to win one.
Winners usually go away. I think Preece could have the best shot in terms of the traditional track. You could certainly see Ryan Preece go to Iowa and just whoop the field.
Yeah, it's a good. Yeah.
Gateway is a track that we're still kind of learning in the first round of the playoffs. I'm not saying it won't happen. It's just to get that first win as the pressure goes up, it's very, very difficult to pull off. And it does happen. Harrison Burton gets his push from Parker Retzlaff last year and takes the win to get into the playoffs in the second to last race of the regular season. It's going to be that, or it's going to be Ty Gibbs finally gets, I say gets by. If you have a situation where Gibbs is within striking range of the 88, you know that 88 is going around and Ty Gibbs is going to win that race.
A couple comments here I want to check in on. First, there's Dee checking in. What's up, Dee? Good to see you tonight. Thanks so much for tuning in. We also have our guy King checking in saying Hocevar is words I cannot say now that we're radio syndicated. So
he's a dumb donkey.
Yeah. You can go. Yes, good.
And that's I think he has gone as far as admitting that sometimes, and that's one of those things. Young drivers, inexperienced drivers who don't have the racecraft quite built up, but they have the speed. They can do some silly things on the racetrack.
Yep.
That's pretty obvious.
We got our guy, Bob Bobner, our IBT Racing family member. Got to have a couple of whiskeys with Bob last year. Checking in as well, saying he's liking Busher and Chastain this week. Love to hear that. Some questions about SVG and street course. We'll certainly chat about that a little bit here later on. But Elliot, I think we should go to our third burning question. What do you say? Yeah,
and we've been talking about all night. There's so many young guys who have speed. And there's a lot of things that are going haywire in the world of 2311 racing. And we talked about the mess that Bubba Wallace got himself in racing around that 48. And in essence, clearing himself, running a guy into the wall, and then ended up spinning himself out, taking away a really good point set that they needed that could have put them plus 20, plus 25 on the cut line to the point where I think he's within 10. I think he might even be plus 3 on the cut line was this sort of behavior that we've seen a lot of times for Bubba
Yep.
Wallace. You're saying it could be the beginning of the end for Bubba at 23:11.
I mean, for a guy who was trying to point his way into the playoffs, how he raced Alex Bowman at the end of that race in Chicago, who was on fresher tires, let me remind everybody, that's unacceptable. Like, pick your battles, baby. Like, I get the in-season tournaments, here, but Bubba's one of these guys I feel like has been walking around. I don't care about the in-season tournament. I'm not looking at it. And then you do that. Okay, buddy. But like, as a guy who bet 3 units on Bubba Wallace to get a win this year, not get to 100 races without a win, I'm kind of out on Bubba, man. Like, and I think based on what Denny said this week on Actions Detrimental, his podcast, like, I'm thinking maybe he's beginning to be too. I honestly think that Bubba's a free agent here in 2027. We've covered Corey Haim's story for a long time on this particular program. That guy is a rock star, certified rock star. We're talking about all these guys who could get wins in cup cars. You put Corey Haim in a cup car, I would say 2 years, he could probably pull one out, honestly. And Bubba's had some great runs this season, not taking anything away from him, but he has had stretches of terrible finishes for like 3 weeks in a row. Like, I'm talking deep 20s, 30, 30 plus. And we're in the midst of another one right now. Like, some of what happened at Pocono when we were betting on him, that was not his fault. Like, that was just kind of bad luck there. Yeah. But then there's like this incident in Chicago. That's his fault, dude. Like, just take the finish, take the points and run. And like, I've lost faith as a bettor because they used to do this thing where they unload fast, it qualified top 5, and then they just couldn't make adjustments with Booty Barker in the gang. And now they can still unload fast, always good in practice. They can't qualify worth a dang right now. And then they have to hope that Bubba can get his way up through the pack because he usually has late run speed and can get you good finishes, but that's if he doesn't get mixed up in something. So again, my burning question here, was Chicago the beginning of the end for Bubba Wallace, who's now just 2 points above the cut line? I think it is. What do you say?
It's like I mentioned, 23:11 is going to be in a place where there's a lot of moving parts. And you mentioned it. Bubba Wallace, he can have good finishes. He's got speed. He's got talent. But what's the most important thing in the Cup Series nowadays, the way that the championship format is set up? Most important thing is wins. And he hasn't done that. And like you said, we're approaching 100 races, if we're not past it, 2022 Fall Kansas, since Bubba Wallace has got to win. And I don't know that I can really name more than a handful of times that he's been close since then. It's just one of those situations where, he made the right move at the right time, gets picked up by 23:11. They get the win early. They get another win the next year. It's just going to be wild to see. And if this were a more traditional team, I could easily say, okay, yeah, we're going to push him out at the end of the contract. You've got a guy in Corey Haim. Corey Haim is going to want to be in Cup before, what you said, at the end of 27, his deal expires, right?
Going into 27, after 26.
At the end of 26, okay. Corey Haim could be Cup ready next year. I mean, he's
where's he going?
But see, that's the thing is if you see some movement here, I don't think they're going to kick Bubba out. Maybe they'll stick Hyman trucks for another year. Maybe
Reddick leaves though, because Reddick now has the clause in his contract where he can get out if he wants it, if he loses the charter.
And I would also say that could be a good cop out, but there's no better ride that's going to be open, and none of the better rides are going to kick their drivers out next year. But I do think for 27 it could be a possibility. And the thing with Haim is somebody could scoop him up. If it's a deal where Toyota says, hey, we can't give you a Cup ride, Chevy or Ford somehow gets something and say, hey, this might not be have the same upside as 23:11 does, but we'll put you in Cup right now. You don't have to keep dealing with this, beating up on everybody in the truck.
That time of year, baby.
Right now, it really is going to be a silly season. And Bubba Wallace now he is starting to creep into the spot where we could be sitting here this time next year having the same conversation about Bubba that we've all had about Daniel Suarez. Well, it was great that he made it. He got a couple of wins. He did pretty well, but then it just didn't work. There's other guys to put in this seat, and he could very well be out of this ride this time next year. I don't think that is too far a bridge to cross for sure.
All right, burning question number 4, a guy who is getting it done and getting some dubs for us bettors along the way here, Elliot.
Yeah, I mean, Shane van Gisbergen has done everything that he needed to do, getting not only 1 win, but 2 wins. And if he can get one of these 2 other road courses, as of right now, he'll be in the joint lead for wins in the Cup Series. And that gives you a lot of playoff points and puts you in a really good position. So my question is can Shane van Gisbergen be a playoff threat? And we know how the scheduling all works out, and that's going to be the most important thing. I don't think that he's going to be a guy that can contend for wins on ovals this year, but he may not have to. If he can get, say that we'll only give him 1 win out of the 2 road courses left. We'll say he wins Sonoma because we have the bets on him. We'll talk about it in a minute. And we'll say somebody nips him at Watkins Glen and gets past him. That still gives him 3 wins, gives him a boatload of playoff points if he can get another stage or 2. In that first round schedule, he's got Darlington, which is on the record saying it's his favorite track. whether he's good at it or not. You go to Gateway, Worldwide Technology Raceway, and then you go to Bristol, which I know is tough for him. He also is on the record saying Bristol is his least favorite track.
Yeah.
But if he can go through there and get 18th place in all three of those races, like an 18th, a 22nd, and like a 19th, with those playoff points and the issues you'll certainly see other guys have, that could get him through. I mean, we saw it. I don't remember how many wins Martin Truex Jr. had a couple of years ago when Truex looked like garbage the whole playoffs. I think he might have finished 15th or worse in the six races in the first 2 rounds, and still pointed his way into the round of 8, and still kind of had a shot at Martinsville to point his way into the championship 4, just based off of his pedigree in the regular season. If you can get SVG past that round of 16, guess what rounds out the round of 12? The Charlotte Roval, where he won the pole last year. It didn't work out for him in either the Cup or Xfinity race to advance him in the Xfinity playoffs or anything like that. But, I mean, it's a very realistic scenario where you could see SVG sitting there with a win at the Roval that he needs to advance to the round of 8 and really upsetting this playoff format. That's the big question, is can this number 88 car be a playoff threat and be sitting in that round of 8 when we get to it in the fall?
This feels very, very familiar territory, Elliot, because I think it was, maybe this time, maybe a couple weeks later that we had that break last year. And I know we did some like preview episodes of looking back at the Xfinity and the truck and the Cup championship odds. And you and I both took a nibble there at SVG, potentially putting on a run. And as you mentioned, didn't work out. The Charlotte road course didn't go his way. However, I mean, here we are in Cup, and like those aren't the worst tracks starting up. And if he can continue to build himself a little bit of a playoff point cushion, he gets through that round of 16. He's in the round of 12. Oh, he's very live, very, very live, I think, to make a push here for the round of 8. And man, if he can not only get to Charlotte there, but I mean, like the second to last race of the season is at Martinsville. Like that is his arguably his best oval.
The week before Martinsville too, if he can get to the round of 8, Talladega is in the round of 8 this year. And we have seen anybody can go win Daytona or Talladega. All due respect to Harrison Burton, I feel like Shane van Gisbergen probably has a little more on the resume, and you never know, could go out there and do something really wild.
Yeah, so many comments here about SVG. Kush saying road course master, absolutely. And Stan saying, how do you feel about the field over SVG at -160? That's crazy.
I saw this bet and I took SVG. I think it was +125 on MGM. I don't have it as we'll talk about SVG obviously in the bets. I didn't have this as a separate bet, but I took SVG over the field on the plus money.
So it's just an outright, basically, is what you another way to get.
It's SVG like +125, +130, or the field at -160.
Yeah.
And honestly, if we hadn't seen what we saw last weekend and what we saw at Mexico City, I'd absolutely take the field. But we saw him go out at Mexico City. We saw the 9 car that he's drove last week and is driving again this week win that race with Daniel Suarez. And we saw SVG win by 16.5 seconds. Then we go to Chicago, a couple guys kind of sort of close. Ty Gibbs has speed. McDowell has something to break on him. Connor Zelish could get up there. Guess who won both races and got that rugby?
Yeah.
Was Shane van Gisbergen. After the way the last couple of road courses have gone, it's silly to bet against him in any race that he's going to be in here.
Yeah, I think this is the week that he gets upended in Cup. I think Sonoma's just been a track that's been around for so long. He's never been here in Cup. So I am betting other people on the outright. I'm not going to bet against him at -160. It's just not worth the juice. But I don't hate that bet, honestly, Kush. I would think about that one. I don't hate that at all. Also, our guy Zach checking in, shouting out a couple drivers he likes on his card this week. Tyler Reddick and your guy Alex Bowman. Not bad. They're both pretty high in the projections this week. So Elliot, love the burning questions though, man. Love all the intrigue we have kind of going down the stretch here. Real quick reminder to everyone before we get going in the Horizon forecast and break down Sonoma. If you guys enjoy this type of content, please, easiest way to support us, give this video a thumbs up. Also, make sure you're subscribing to the channel if you're new, and let us know your burning questions down in the chat, down in the comments below. We want to hear from you. And if you want a little more of us as well, check out the IBT Racing family. It's our premium community over there. We're giving you guys a lot of exclusive content, our weekly betting models. Elliot and I's cards are in there as well, and a lot of BS in between.